photograph plate slipped from Laura Sinclair's trembling fingers and shattered against the saloon floor, scattering glass shards across worn planks in Dry Creek, New Mexico territory, August 1875.
That was my only copy.
Vernon Coleman caught her wrist before she could cut herself on the jagged edges, his calloused palm warm against her skin.
Leave it. Glass heals slower than pride.
She jerked back, fire flashing in those green eyes he had noticed the moment she stepped off the stage 3 weeks ago.
You do not understand. That plate showed Beaumont setting the fire at the Miller Ranch.
Vernon's jaw tightened because he understood perfectly, and that knowledge made everything worse. Wainwright Beaumont owned half the railroad contracts in the territory and kept the other half in his pocket through bribes and threats.
Then, you just painted a target on your back.
I already had one. He is trying to steal my land claim.
The door crashed open, and 2 men in railroad uniforms stepped inside, hands resting on holstered revolvers. Vernon stood slowly, putting himself between Laura and the threat.
Gentlemen, something I can help you with.
The taller one smiled without warmth. Mr. Beaumont wants a word with the photographer. Laura rose, chin lifted despite the fear Vernon could see tightening the corners of her mouth.
Tell Mr. Beaumont, I am busy.
The man's smile vanished. He insists. Vernon shifted his weight. Ready.
The lady said she is busy.
The shorter man's hand moved toward his gun, but Vernon was faster, grabbing a whiskey bottle from the nearest table and hurling it past the man's ear where it exploded against the door frame.
Next one hits flesh. Now get out.
They backed through the swinging doors, eyes promising trouble. Laura exhaled hard, her shoulder brushing Vernon's arm.
That was foolish.
Probably, but I am good at foolish.
She almost smiled, and Vernon felt something shift in his chest that had nothing to do with the adrenaline fading from his veins. 3 weeks ago, he had been hired to move cattle through the mountain passes before the seasonal storms hit. But the water rights dispute had delayed everything, and now he was stuck in Dry Creek, watching a woman with a camera dismantle her own safety, one photograph at a time.
Why did you help me?
Because you looked like you needed it.
She studied him for a long moment, then bent to gather her camera equipment.
I have another plate. Hidden.
Where?
My cabin. But Beaumont knows where I live.
Then we move it. Now.
They rode hard toward Laura's cabin at the edge of town, dust rising in plumes behind the horses' hooves. Vernon kept glancing back, watching for pursuit. Laura's mare stumbled on loose rocks, and she lurched forward, nearly losing her seat. Vernon's hand shot out, gripping her elbow until she regained balance.
Easy.
I have it.
But her voice shook, and her knuckles were white on the reins.
When we get there, grab the plate and anything you cannot replace. We are not coming back.
Where are we going?
My camp. Canyon Pass. Beaumont's men will not find it.
The cabin appeared ahead, small and sun-bleached with a crooked chimney. Laura dismounted before her horse fully stopped, stumbling on the uneven ground. Vernon caught her waist, steadying her, and for a heartbeat they stood chest to chest, breathing hard. Her eyes widened, and color rose in her cheeks.
Thank you.
She pulled away and hurried inside. Vernon scanned the horizon, hand on his revolver. Movement flickered near the tree line, 2 riders approaching fast.
Laura, we have company.
She burst through the door, clutching a wooden box and a leather satchel, hair coming loose from its pins.
Got it.
Vernon grabbed her arm and half lifted her onto her mare, then swung onto his own mount. The riders were close enough now that he could see their railroad uniforms.
Canyon Pass. Stay close.
They spurred their horses into a flat-out run, the canyon opening yawning ahead like a mouth carved into red rock. The pursuing riders fired warning shots that cracked through the hot air. Laura flinched but kept riding, bent low over her mare's neck. The canyon walls rose around them, narrowing the path. Vernon's gelding stumbled on loose shale, and he yanked the reins hard to keep from pitching forward.
There.
He pointed to a narrow split in the canyon wall, barely wide enough for a horse. Laura hesitated, eyes wide.
That is suicide.
So is getting caught.
He rode straight for the gap, and she followed, her mare's sides scraping against stone. The passage twisted and climbed, forcing them to dismount and lead the horses by hand. Behind them, shouts echoed as the railroad men tried to follow. Vernon reached back and grabbed Laura's hand, pulling her up a steep section where loose rock crumbled underfoot.
I cannot see the bottom.
Then do not look down. Look at me.
Her gaze locked on his, and he felt the impact like a physical blow.
Step where I step. Trust me.
She nodded and they moved together, inch by inch, until the passage opened into a small hidden hollow with a spring-fed pool and enough grass for the horses. Vernon tied the animals and turned to find Laura sitting on a flat rock, shaking. He crouched in front of her, hands on her knees.
You did good.
I almost fell.
But you did not.
She set the wooden box down carefully and opened it, revealing a glass plate wrapped in cloth. Even in the fading light, Vernon could make out the image. Wainwright Beaumont holding a torch to a barn wall, his face clear and unmistakable.
That is enough to hang him.
If we can get it to the marshal in Santa Fe.
Big if.
Laura pulled a canteen from her satchel and offered it to him. Their fingers brushed, and she did not pull away immediately.
Why are you helping me? You barely know me.
Maybe I want to know you better.
A smile tugged at her lips, the first real one he had seen.
Dangerous thing to admit.
I do dangerous pretty well.
She laughed, a sound that echoed off the canyon walls and made something warm unfurl in Vernon's chest. Then, her expression sobered.
Beaumont will not stop. He needs my land because the water rights go with it. Without water, the railroad expansion dies, and he loses everything he has invested.
So we make sure he loses anyway.
How?
We go to Santa Fe, show the marshal that plate. Then we come back and make sure your claim is filed properly.
The land office closes in 4 days.
Then we have 4 days.
She studied him for a long moment, then extended her hand.
Partners.
He shook it, her palm small and warm in his.
Partners.
They made camp as darkness fell, building a small fire that Vernon shielded with rocks so the light would not give them away. Laura sat close enough that he could smell the dust and sage in her hair.
Tell me something true.
About what?
About you. Why a trail boss ends up defending a stranger.
Vernon poked the fire with a stick, watching sparks rise.
Lost someone once. Someone I should have protected. Told myself I would not make that mistake again.
That is not your burden to carry.
Maybe not. But I carry it anyway.
She reached out and touched his hand, just briefly.
I am sorry.
Ancient history.
Still hurts, though.
Some things do.
They sat in comfortable silence until Laura yawned and leaned her head against his shoulder, just for a moment.
Sorry. Long day.
You can rest. I will keep watch.
But she straightened, cheeks flushed.
We should both rest. Take turns.
Fair enough.
She spread a blanket and lay down, and Vernon positioned himself between her and the canyon entrance, revolver within reach. Sleep did not come easy. Every sound made him tense, but Laura's steady breathing eventually lulled him into a light doze. He woke before dawn to find her sitting up, staring at the photograph plate.
Second thoughts.
Just wondering if it is worth dying for.
Is it?
I do not know anymore. I came west to start over. Save money. Go back east and open a proper studio. But this place gets under your skin.
That it does.
You ever think about leaving?
Every day. And every day, I stay.
She smiled at that, then carefully wrapped the plate again.
We should move. Beaumont will have men searching.
They rode out as the sun cleared the canyon rim, following a route Vernon knew from months of trailing cattle through these passes. Laura handled her mare better today, more confident despite the exhaustion shadowing her eyes. They stopped at midday to water the horses at a narrow creek, and Vernon caught Laura watching him with an expression he could not quite read.
What?
You are staring.
Just thinking.
About
How I am trusting my life to a man I met 3 weeks ago.
regretting it.
Not yet.
She grinned and splashed water at him. He jerked back, laughing, then flicked water back at her. She shrieked and stumbled backward, landing on her backside in the shallow creek. Vernon reached to help her up, but she grabbed his wrist and pulled, and he toppled forward into the water beside her. They both came up sputtering, soaked and laughing.
That was low.
You started it.
Their eyes met, and the laughter faded into something heavier. Water dripped from her hair onto her collarbone, and Vernon forced himself to look away. Heat rising in his face that had nothing to do with the sun.
We should keep moving.
They rode through the afternoon, the landscape shifting from red rock canyons to scrub-covered hills. Laura asked questions about trailing cattle, about the mountains, about everything, and Vernon found himself talking more than he had in months. As the sun angled low, Laura suddenly reined in her mare, pointing.
Riders.
Vernon saw them too, 3 men on the ridge ahead. Too far to identify, but the way they sat their horses spoke of purpose and trouble.
Could be anyone.
Could be Beaumont's men.
Canyon Pass splits ahead. We take the north route. Longer, but harder to follow.
They urged their horses into a canter, angling toward the fork. The riders on the ridge moved to intercept, and Vernon cursed under his breath.
They spotted us.
Can we outrun them?
Maybe. Hold tight.
Laura's mare stumbled hard, nearly throwing her. Vernon saw it happen in slow motion, saw Laura lose her grip on the reins and pitch sideways. He kicked free of his stirrups and lunged, catching her around the waist as she fell. They both hit the ground rolling, dust filling Vernon's mouth and nose. His shoulder slammed into rock, but he kept his arms locked around Laura, absorbing the worst of the impact. They came to rest in a tangle of limbs. Laura sprawled across his chest.
Are you hurt?
Nothing broken. You.
I am fine.
She pushed herself up, face inches from his, and for a heartbeat, neither of them moved. Then Vernon heard hoofbeats closing fast, and reality crashed back.
Run.
He grabbed her hand, and they sprinted for a cluster of boulders, diving behind cover just as the three riders thundered past. Vernon pressed Laura flat against the rock, one hand over her mouth, his body shielding hers. The riders slowed, circling. Did you see them? Lost them in the dust. Check the canyon. Vernon felt Laura's rapid heartbeat against his chest, felt her breath hot on his palm. He lowered his hand slowly, and she turned her head, just enough to whisper in his ear.
The plate.
Still in your bag.
The horses.
Gone.
She closed her eyes briefly, frustration and fear warring across her face. Vernon touched her chin, turning her to face him.
We will figure it out.
The riders moved off, and Vernon waited until the sound faded completely before easing back. Laura sat up, brushing dust from her dress.
Now what?
We walk.
To Santa Fe.
To the next town. Borrow horses.
Steal horses.
Borrow, firmly.
She almost laughed, then winced and touched her side. Vernon moved closer, hands hovering.
Let me see.
It is nothing.
Let me see anyway.
She lifted her arm, and he saw the torn fabric and the scrape beneath, red and angry, but not deep. He pulled a clean cloth from his pocket and dampened it with water from her canteen, then carefully cleaned the wound. Laura hissed through her teeth, but did not pull away.
Sorry.
It is fine. You are surprisingly gentle for a trail boss.
I have practice.
With cows.
Cows do not usually thank me.
She smiled despite the pain, and Vernon tied the cloth in place with a strip torn from his own shirt.
Thank you.
Anytime.
They walked through the evening, following the canyon trail north. Laura's limp grew more pronounced, and Vernon slowed his pace to match hers. When she stumbled on loose shale, he caught her elbow and did not let go, guiding her over the rough terrain. The sun set in a blaze of orange and red, painting the canyon walls in fire. Laura stopped, staring.
I wish I had my camera.
Why?
Because this is the kind of moment people forget. Beauty in the middle of disaster.
You see beauty here.
Do you not?
Vernon looked at the sunset, then at Laura silhouetted against it, dust in her hair and determination in her eyes.
Yeah, I see it.
They made camp in a shallow cave as darkness fell, building a tiny fire for warmth. Laura sat close, shivering despite the heat. Vernon hesitated, then put his arm around her shoulders.
Body heat. Practical.
Very practical.
She leaned into him, and he felt the tension drain from her frame. They sat like that until the fire burned low, neither speaking, just existing in the same space. Finally, Laura stirred.
Vernon.
Yeah,
I am glad you were in that saloon.
me too.
She turned her head and kissed his cheek, quick and light, then pulled back with color rising in her face.
Sorry. I should not have.
Do not apologize.
He cupped her face in his hand and kissed her properly, slow and careful, tasting dust and courage. She made a soft sound, and her fingers curled in his vest, pulling him closer. When they broke apart, both breathing hard, Vernon rested his forehead against hers.
We should get some sleep.
Probably.
But neither moved for a long moment. Finally, Laura settled against his side, and Vernon wrapped his arm around her, keeping watch as she drifted off. He woke to shouting and the acrid smell of smoke. Vernon jerked awake to find the canyon filling with smoke, flames licking up from strategically placed brush piles, blocking their escape route. Laura coughed beside him, eyes streaming.
They are smoking us out.
Beaumont.
Has to be.
He grabbed her hand and they stumbled toward the cave entrance, but fire already blocked the main path. Laura pulled him back, pointing up.
There. Ledge.
A narrow shelf of rock climbed the canyon wall, barely wide enough to walk. Vernon boosted Laura up first, then scrambled after her. Below, two figures moved through the smoke, one tapping something against his leg with sharp metallic clicks. Vernon glimpsed a cane with a carved snake head before the smoke obscured the view.
Beaumont himself.
He must really want that plate.
Climb. Fast.
They worked their way up the treacherous ledge, loose rock crumbling under their boots. Laura's foot slipped, and she gasped, grabbing Vernon's outstretched hand. He hauled her up beside him, her body pressed against his on the narrow space.
Careful.
I am trying.
Gunshots cracked below, and rock chips exploded near Vernon's head. He shielded Laura with his body, and they scrambled higher, lungs burning from smoke and exertion. The ledge ended at a mine shaft entrance. Old timbers half rotted, but the tunnel dark and deep.
In. Now.
They plunged into darkness, feeling their way along the rough walls. Behind them, voices echoed. They went in the shaft. Seal it.
They are going to trap us.
Or we find another way out.
Vernon pulled a match from his pocket and struck it, the tiny flame revealing a narrow passage that split into 3 directions.
Which way?
Your guess is as good as mine.
Laura closed her eyes, then pointed left.
That one. I feel air moving.
They ran, Vernon lighting matches as they went, until his supply dwindled to nothing. Behind them came the sound of falling timber and rock, the shaft entrance collapsing. Laura stumbled, and Vernon caught her, pulling her against him.
We are not dying in here.
Promise.
Promise.
They pushed forward in darkness, hands trailing along walls, until Vernon felt the texture change from rough stone to packed earth.
Here.
He dug at the earth with his hands, and Laura joined him, clawing at dirt and roots. Light appeared above, just a crack, but enough. They widened the opening and squeezed through, emerging into blinding sunlight on the far side of the canyon. They lay on the ground gasping, covered in dirt and sweat. Laura started laughing, a wild, breathless sound that made Vernon grin despite everything.
We are alive.
For now.
I will take it.
He sat up and pulled her upright, checking her over for injuries. Her dress was torn, her face smudged with dirt, her hair a tangled mess around her shoulders. She was the most beautiful thing he had ever seen.
You look terrible.
You look worse.
She leaned forward and kissed him, hard and urgent, her hands fisting in his vest. Vernon kissed her back, tasting dust and desperation, and something sweeter underneath. When they broke apart, Laura rested her forehead against his.
I do not want to go east anymore.
No.
I want to stay. Build something here.
Dangerous plan.
I seem to be good at dangerous.
Where did you learn that?
From a trail boss I know.
Vernon smiled and kissed her again, softer this time, then stood and pulled her to her feet.
We still need to get to Santa Fe.
Then we do it. Together.
They walked until they found a small ranch, and the owner agreed to lend them horses after hearing a carefully edited version of their story. Laura checked the wooden box for the 100th time and sighed in relief when the plate remained intact.
Still good.
Then let us finish this.
They rode through the afternoon and into evening, covering miles of open scrubland. As they crested a ridge, Laura suddenly grabbed Vernon's arm.
Look.
Below, a town sprawled along a river, buildings clustered around a central square. But between them and the town, a group of riders blocked the road. Vernon counted 6, all wearing railroad uniforms. In the center sat a man on a black horse, tapping a snakehead cane against his thigh.
Beaumont.
He knew we would come this way.
Probably had men on every route.
What do we do?
Go around.
They will see us.
Then we go fast.
They spurred their horses and veered off the main road, cutting across rough terrain. The railroad men gave chase immediately, shouting orders. Vernon leaned low over his gelding's neck, keeping pace with Laura. Her borrowed horse was fast but tiring, foam flecking its mouth.
We need to lose them.
How?
River.
They angled toward the water, horses plunging down the steep bank and splashing into the current. The river ran fast, but not deep, and they urged their mounts upstream, using the water to hide their tracks. Behind them, the railroad men reached the bank and split up, some heading upstream and others down. Vernon grabbed Laura's reins and pulled her toward the far bank, where an overhang of willows provided cover.
Wait here.
What are you doing?
Creating a distraction.
Vernon. No.
But he was already riding back into the open, drawing his revolver and firing into the air. The railroad men converged on him, and he galloped downstream, leading them away from Laura. She watched him go, heart pounding, then spurred her horse across the river and up the opposite bank. She rode hard toward town, the wooden box bouncing against the saddle. Within minutes she heard hoofbeats behind her and turned to see Vernon catching up, his horse lathered and breathing hard.
Lost them in the cottonwoods.
You could have been killed.
But I was not.
Do not do that again.
No promises.
They reached Dry Creek as the sun touched the horizon, the sky streaked with orange and pink. The town looked quiet, too quiet. Vernon pulled up at the edge of Main Street and dismounted, helping Laura down. She grabbed the box, and they moved quickly toward the marshal's office, staying close to the buildings. The street was empty, except for a few loiterers outside the saloon.
Something is wrong.
Where is everyone?
The marshal's office door stood open. Inside, they found the marshal slumped at his desk, a bottle beside him, and his eyes glazed. He looked up when they entered, then waved them away. Marshal drunk, no help.
We need to find the land office clerk.
He lives above the general store.
They climbed the outside stairs to the second floor and knocked hard. A man in his 50s opened the door, eyes widening when he saw them. Clerk recognized Laura immediately. He is the land office clerk. Come in quick. Inside, they explained everything. The clerk examined the photograph plate under lamplight, his face growing pale. Clerk shaking his head. This is Beaumont and his men forcing laborers into the mine shaft. This proves everything. But if I file this tonight, Beaumont will know by morning.
We need to file it now before he can stop us.
Clerk hesitating. The office is locked. Only the judge has the other key.
Then, we get the judge.
Clerk looking nervous. Judge is at his ranch 5 miles west.
We will ride there now.
But when they stepped outside, 3 men stood at the base of the stairs. One wore a railroad foreman's hat. Foreman calling up. Beaumont wants his property back. Hand over the plate, and we will let you walk away.
Not happening.
The foreman shrugged and drew his gun. Vernon shoved Laura back inside and slammed the door, bullets splintering the wood. The clerk dove behind a trunk.
Back window.
Vernon grabbed the box and they ran to the rear of the apartment. The window opened onto a narrow alley. Laura climbed out first, dropping to the ground, and Vernon tossed her the box before following. They heard boots pounding up the stairs.
This way.
They ran through the alley and emerged behind the livery stable. Their horses were still tied near the marshal's office, too far to reach. Vernon spotted a wagon hitched outside the stable, 2 draft horses standing patiently.
Borrow these.
Steal, you mean?
Borrow. Urgently.
They climbed onto the wagon, and Vernon snapped the reins. The draft horses lurched forward, pulling the heavy wagon down the alley and onto the back street. Shouts erupted behind them. Vernon turned the wagon west, heading for the open road. Laura clung to the seat, the box tucked under her arm.
Hold on.
A gunshot cracked, and wood splintered near Laura's head. She ducked, and Vernon urged the horses faster. But the wagon was slow and cumbersome. Behind them, riders were gaining, at least 4 men on fast horses.
They are catching up.
I know.
What do we do?
When I say jump, you jump.
What?
Trust me.
He drove the wagon hard toward a narrow pass between 2 rocky hills. As they entered the pass, he pulled the reins sharply left, turning the wagon sideways and blocking the road.
Now.
They leaped off the wagon and scrambled up the rocky slope, Laura clutching the box. The pursuing riders reached the wagon and had to dismount to move it, buying precious seconds. Vernon and Laura climbed higher, reaching a shelf of rock that overlooked the pass. Below, Beaumont's men wrestled with the wagon, cursing.
Keep moving.
They followed the shelf west, moving parallel to the road, but above it. The terrain was rough, loose stones skittering under their boots. Laura's dress snagged on a juniper branch, and Vernon freed it without slowing. After 20 minutes, they descended back to the road, far ahead of their pursuers.
How far to the judge's ranch?
3 miles, maybe.
Can we make it on foot?
We have to.
They walked fast, then jogged, then walked again when Laura's breath grew short. The night was warm and clear, stars brilliant overhead. Vernon kept glancing back, watching for riders.
Vernon.
Yeah.
Thank you.
For what?
For believing me. For helping. For not leaving.
I am not going anywhere.
She looked at him, and even in the starlight he could see the emotion in her eyes. He reached for her hand and squeezed it, and she squeezed back. They walked hand in hand for a few steps before the sound of hoofbeats made them freeze. Vernon pulled her off the road, and they crouched behind a boulder. 2 riders passed, heading back toward town.
They are searching everywhere.
Beaumont must be desperate.
Good. Desperate men make mistakes.
They reached the judge's ranch an hour later, a modest adobe house with a barn and corral. Lamplight glowed in the windows. Vernon knocked, and an older man opened the door, silver-haired and sharp-eyed. Judge frowning. "Vernon Coleman, what brings you here at this hour?"
We need your help, Judge. This is Laura Sinclair. She has evidence of a crime.
The judge invited them in and listened as they explained. He examined the photograph plate carefully, his expression darkening. Judge, nodding slowly. "This is serious. Beaumont has been untouchable for years. But this changes everything. We file this tomorrow morning first thing."
Beaumont will try to stop us.
Judge smiling grimly. "Let him try. I will have the sheriff deputize 12 men by dawn."
The sheriff is compromised.
Judge waving a hand. "The county sheriff, not the town marshal. He is an honest man."
Can we stay here tonight?
Judge nodding. "You can sleep in the barn. I will keep the plate locked in my safe." Laura hesitated, then handed over the box. The judge carried it to a heavy iron safe and locked it inside. Judge turning back. "Get some rest. Tomorrow will be a long day." They walked to the barn together, both exhausted. Inside, the air smelled of hay and horses. Vernon found a ladder to the loft and climbed up, then reached down to help Laura. The loft was dry and warm, filled with sweet-smelling hay. They sat on a bale, shoulders touching.
Do you think he will come tonight?
Maybe. But the judge has ranch hands and dogs. We will hear them.
I am too tired to be scared.
Then do not be.
She leaned against him, and he put his arm around her. Her head rested on his shoulder.
Vernon,
Yeah,
when this is over, what will you do?
I have a herd waiting in Amarillo. Need to get back to them.
And then,
Drive them north. Sell them. Do it again.
sounds lonely.
It is.
You could stay here,
In Dry Creek.
or wherever I go next.
He turned to look at her, and she lifted her head, their faces inches apart.
You would want that.
I think I would.
Laura.
He leaned closer, and she closed her eyes. But a dog barked sharply outside, and they both tensed. Vernon moved to the loft door and looked out. Nothing moved except the dog circling the yard.
False alarm.
But the moment had passed. Laura lay back on the hay, using her shawl as a pillow. Vernon lay beside her, close but not touching.
Get some sleep.
You too.
But neither of them slept much. Every sound brought them alert. Near midnight, riders approached, and Vernon crept to the door. But they passed without stopping. Laura sat up, and he returned to her side.
This is not over.
No. But we are winning.
How do you know?
Because Beaumont is running. And we are still here.
Before dawn, the judge woke them with coffee and biscuits. Judge explaining. The county sheriff is on his way with 6 deputies. We will ride into town together and file the evidence. Then, the sheriff will arrest Beaumont.
Beaumont will not go quietly.
Judge nodding. I know. That is why we have deputies. They rode into Dry Creek at sunrise. A convoy of 10 riders with the judge and the county sheriff in the lead. Vernon and Laura rode side by side near the back. The town was stirring, shopkeepers opening their doors and early risers filling the street. The group stopped at the land office and the judge unlocked the door. Inside, he filed the photograph plate as official evidence, and the clerk prepared the documents. Clerk working quickly, hands shaking. This will take a few minutes. Outside, a crowd was gathering. Word had spread fast. Vernon stood on the boardwalk, scanning the crowd. Laura stood beside him, her hand brushing his.
Where is Beaumont?
Probably at the railhead.
The county sheriff emerged from the land office and addressed the crowd. Sheriff announcing, Wainwright Beaumont is wanted for arson, extortion, and forced labor. Anyone who helps him will be charged as an accomplice. A murmur ran through the crowd. Some looked relieved, others shocked. Then a voice called out from the end of the street. Beaumont riding slowly toward them on his black horse, tapping his snakehead cane against his boot. Behind him rode a dozen railroad men, all armed. Beaumont stopping 50 feet away. You think you can file some papers, and I will just surrender. Sheriff stepping forward. The law says you will. Beaumont laughing. The law is what I make it. He raised his cane, and the railroad men drew their guns. The crowd scattered, people diving into shops and alleys. The deputies drew their weapons, and Vernon pulled Laura behind a water trough.
Stay down.
What is he doing?
Making a stand.
The sheriff called out one more warning. Sheriff shouting, drop your weapons or we will fire. Beaumont tapped his cane twice, and the railroad men opened fire. The street erupted in gunshots, glass shattering and wood splintering. The deputies returned fire, and 2 railroad men fell from their horses. Vernon drew his revolver and fired at a man aiming at the sheriff. The man jerked and dropped his gun. Laura pressed against the trough, hands over her ears.
Move to the alley.
He grabbed her hand, and they ran low, bullets kicking up dust around their feet. They reached the alley and ducked behind a stack of crates. Vernon reloaded and peered around the corner. Beaumont was still mounted, shouting orders and swinging his cane. 3 more railroad men were down, and the rest were retreating. The deputies advanced, and the sheriff called for surrender. One by one, the railroad men dropped their guns and raised their hands. But Beaumont did not surrender. He spurred his horse and charged directly at the sheriff, swinging his cane like a weapon. The sheriff fired, and Beaumont jerked, but did not fall. His horse stumbled, and he leaped off, rolling to his feet and drawing a pistol. He fired wildly, backing toward the train depot. The deputies closed in, and Beaumont ducked inside the building. Sheriff calling, surround the depot. Do not let him escape. Vernon and Laura ran to join the sheriff.
He is cornered.
Sheriff nodding. But he still has a gun.
Let me talk to him.
Both men turned to stare at her.
Absolutely not.
He wants the photograph plate. I can offer a trade.
We are not trading anything.
I do not mean a real trade, just a distraction.
The sheriff considered, then nodded. Sheriff agreeing. It might work. But you stay behind cover. Laura approached the depot door, Vernon right beside her.
Mr. Beaumont,
Silence.
I have the photograph plate. You let the workers go, and I will give it to you.
Beaumont's voice came from inside, strained and angry. Beaumont shouting, "You think I am a fool?"
I think you are a businessman. You want to cut your losses.
Beaumont laughing bitterly. My losses. You have ruined me.
Then, surrender and face trial. Or, die in there.
A long pause. Then Beaumont spoke again. Quieter. Beaumont calling. Send in the plate. Alone.
No.
It is the only way.
Laura.
Trust me.
She looked at Vernon, and he saw the determination in her eyes. He wanted to argue, but knew it would not change her mind.
I am coming with you.
He said alone.
Then, he can shoot us both.
The sheriff handed Vernon a second revolver. Vernon checked the cylinder and nodded. Laura took a deep breath and pushed open the depot door. Inside, the building was dim, sunlight slanting through dusty windows. Beaumont stood near the back wall, his snakehead cane leaning against a bench, and his pistol aimed at the door. Blood stained his shoulder. Beaumont seeing them. I said alone.
He insisted.
Beaumont laughing weakly. Of course he did.
Drop the gun. Beaumont.
Beaumont shaking his head. I drop the gun, I hang.
You hang either way. But if you surrender, you live long enough for a trial.
Beaumont looking at her with hatred. You should have sold me that land.
It was not mine to sell.
Beaumont raising his gun toward her. Then you should have left town. Vernon fired first, his shot striking Beaumont's gun hand. The pistol flew across the room and Beaumont collapsed against the wall, clutching his bleeding hand. The deputies rushed in and pinned him down, snapping iron cuffs on his wrists. Sheriff pulling Beaumont to his feet. Wainwright Beaumont, you are under arrest. Beaumont glaring at Laura. This is not over.
Yes, it is.
The sheriff led Beaumont outside, and the crowd erupted in cheers. Vernon holstered his revolver and turned to Laura. She was shaking, adrenaline fading.
You all right?
I think so.
That was reckless.
It worked.
Barely.
But it did.
He pulled her into his arms, and she hugged him tight, her face pressed against his chest.
Do not ever do that again.
I will try.
Laura.
I promise.
The judge approached and shook both their hands. Judge smiling. Well done. The evidence is filed, and Beaumont is in custody. The railroad workers will be released, and the land rights restored.
What about my claim?
Judge nodding. Already processed. The land is yours. Laura exhaled, relief flooding through her. Vernon kept his arm around her.
What will you do with it?
I do not know yet. Build something, maybe.
Like what?
A home.
Good choice.
Would you help me?
Build a home.
Live in it.
Vernon smiled. The first real smile she had seen from him.
I think I would like that.
Even if it means giving up the trail.
Especially if it means that.
She reached up and kissed him, right there in the middle of Main Street with the whole town watching. He kissed her back, his hand cradling her face. When they finally pulled apart, the crowd was cheering again.
Is that a yes?
That is a yes.
The judge clapped Vernon on the shoulder. Judge laughing. Congratulations to you both. Vernon and Laura walked together toward the edge of town, leaving the noise behind. The sun was climbing higher, the day growing warm. They climbed a low ridge that overlooked the valley, Laura's land stretching out before them.
It is beautiful.
It is.
We could build right there, near the cottonwoods,
Good water source.
and a view of the mountains.
Sounds perfect.
They sat on the ridge, side by side, watching the valley. Laura leaned against him, and he put his arm around her.
Vernon,
Yeah,
I love you.
I love you too.
How long have you known?
Since you fell off that horse.
I did not fall. I dismounted poorly.
You fell.
Fine. I fell.
She laughed, and he kissed her forehead. Below, the town of Dry Creek was settling back into its rhythm, the danger past and the future open.
We should get back. Start planning.
In a minute.
Laura.
Just one more minute.
He smiled and pulled her closer. They sat together on the ridge, the land spreading out before them, the promise of something slow and real finally within reach. She fell off a horse, and he laughed. Then he fell in love. In 1875 New Mexico Territory, photographer Laura Sinclair captures a crime that puts her in the crosshairs of a ruthless railroad foreman. Trail boss Vernon Coleman never planned to stay in Dry Creek, but when Laura's evidence threatens a powerful land baron, he risks everything to protect her. Together they face canyon chases, mine cave-ins, shootouts, and desperate escapes, all while fighting an attraction neither can ignore. From a dusty street confrontation to a ridge overlooking their future, this Wild West romance delivers danger, determination, and a love worth fighting for. Subscribe for more thrilling historical romances. Wild West Romance, 1870s New Mexico, Western love story, cowboy romance, historical romance, action romance, trail boss, photographer heroine, land baron villain, gunfight, canyon chase, mine cave-in, enemies to lovers, forced proximity romance, western adventure, frontier romance, authentic western, period, romance, happy ending romance, romantic suspense, colorized late 1800s American West photograph. Natural light, gentle contrast, slightly soft focus, subtle film grain, faint dust/scratches, slight vignetting, no text, no watermark. Woman in her mid-20s with chestnut brown hair, partially fallen from updo and bright green eyes, wearing dusty burgundy traveling dress. Man in his late 20s with dark brown hair and warm hazel eyes, wearing tan work shirt and brown leather vest with weathered cowboy hat. Woman caught mid-stumble beside a horse with startled laughing expression and arms flailing for balance. Man lunging forward with one hand reaching to catch her forearm, and other hand still holding his hat with amused grin spreading across his face. Both faces showing mix of surprise and delight as they lock eyes mid-mishap. Kicked up dust and scattered pebbles in foreground. wooden hitching post and horses' legs in mid-ground. Dusty Main Street with false front buildings and a few onlookers in background. Warm afternoon sun creating golden highlights and long shadows. Warm beige and amber color grading with natural depth of phi. LD. Photorealistic cinematic style. Shot on cinema camera. Natural golden hour lighting. Shallow depth of field with soft bokeh background. Warm beige and amber color grading. Looks like a film still from a premium Western romance movie. Authentic 1800s period photography aesthetic. Professional portrait photog. Rafi quality. Gore/thumb heart pounding. Then turned her horse and rode hard for town. She kept to the trees, following the river until she could see the buildings ahead. The sun was sinking toward the horizon, painting the sky orange and gold. She dismounted near the land office, tied her horse, and clutched the wooden box to her chest. Inside, the clerk looked up from his desk with surprise.
I need to file evidence against Wainwright Beaumont for arson and fraud.
The clerk's eyes widened. He gestured for her to follow him to a back room where a territorial marshal sat reviewing papers. The marshal was older, with gray hair and steady eyes. Laura opened the box and spread the photographs on the table.
These show Beaumont's men setting fires to force property sales. This one shows him at the scene directing them.
The marshal studied each image carefully, then looked at her. The marshal confirmed this was sufficient evidence to issue a warrant and asked if she could testify.
Yes, but he has men hunting me right now.
The marshal stood and called for deputies. Within minutes, armed men were heading out to intercept Beaumont's riders. Laura sat in the office, exhausted and worried about Vernon. An hour passed. Then, 2. The sky outside turned deep purple, and lanterns were lit along the street. Finally, the door opened, and Vernon walked in, dusty and breathing hard, but unharmed.
You are alive.
Hard to kill.
I thought they caught you.
They tried. I lost them in the canyon and doubled back.
She threw her arms around him, not caring who saw. He held her close, his hand cradling the back of her head.
You filed the evidence.
Yes. The marshal issued a warrant.
Then, it is over.
Almost.
The marshal cleared his throat. The marshal explained that Beaumont had been arrested an hour ago, when deputies found him at the railroad camp. His men scattered when they realized the law was involved. The town's water rights were safe, and the land office would review all recent forced sales. Laura felt a wave of relief so strong her knees weakened. Vernon steadied her, his arm around her waist.
You need rest.
So do you.
Later.
The marshal offered them a room at the boarding house for the night, paid by the territorial government as thanks for their cooperation. They walked through the quiet streets side by side, the evening air warm and smelling of dust and wood smoke. At the boarding house, the owner showed them to a simple room with 2 beds and a washstand. Vernon set his hat on the table and sat heavily on one bed. Laura sat beside him, suddenly aware of how close they were and how much had changed in 2 days.
What will you do now?
I do not know. The cattle drive is done. I could find another.
Or you could stay.
In Dry Creek.
Why not? The town needs honest people.
And you?
I am staying. I have a business to build.
Photographs.
Yes. And maybe other things.
He turned to look at her, his hazel eyes searching her face.
You want me to stay?
I want you to choose what makes you happy.
You make me happy.
Her breath caught.
I have not felt this way in years. Maybe ever. You are brave and smart and stubborn.
Stubborn.
In a good way.
You are not so bad yourself.
He laughed. A low, warm sound.
Not so bad.
Better than not so bad.
Tell me.
You are kind and strong, and you make me feel safe.
I will always keep you safe.
She leaned closer, her hand resting on his chest.
Promise.
Promise.
He cupped her face with one hand, his thumb brushing her cheek. Then, he kissed her, slow and gentle, and she felt the world narrow to just the two of them. When they finally pulled apart, he rested his forehead against hers.
Stay with me.
I am not going anywhere.
Good.
They sat like that for a long moment. Then Laura stood and moved to the washstand, pouring water into the basin. She washed her face and hands, then offered Vernon the towel. He cleaned up, wincing slightly as he touched a bruise on his ribs.
Are you hurt?
Just sore. Nothing broken.
Let me see.
He lifted his shirt, revealing a dark bruise spreading across his side. Laura touched it gently, and he flinched.
You need a doctor.
I need sleep.
Vernon.
Laura. I am fine.
She crossed her arms.
You are impossible.
You like it?
Maybe.
He grinned and pulled his shirt back down, then stretched out on the bed with a sigh. Laura sat on the other bed, watching him.
What?
Nothing.
You are staring.
I am thinking.
About what?
About how everything changed so fast. 2 days ago, I did not know you. Now I cannot imagine you not being here.
I feel the same.
He held out his hand, and she crossed to his bed, sitting beside him. He pulled her down gently until she was lying next to him, her head on his shoulder.
This is better.
Much better.
They lay together in the fading light, the sounds of the town settling for the night drifting through the window. Laura felt safe and warm, Vernon's heartbeat steady under her ear.
What happens tomorrow?
Tomorrow, we start building something real.
Together.
Together.
She closed her eyes, smiling. The next morning, sunlight streamed through the window, waking them both. Vernon stirred first, careful not to disturb Laura, but she opened her eyes and smiled up at him.
Good morning.
Morning.
They dressed and went downstairs where the boarding house owner had prepared breakfast. Over eggs and coffee, they talked about plans. Vernon decided to use his savings to buy a small ranch outside town. Laura would open a photography studio on Main Street. They would build their lives side by side, taking things one day at a time. After breakfast, they walked to the land office to finalize paperwork. The clerk greeted them warmly and confirmed that all charges against Beaumont were proceeding. The railroad company had disavowed him and was cooperating with investigators. The town's water rights were restored, and several families who had been forced to sell were reclaiming their property. Outside, the street was busy with people going about their day. Laura noticed several folks nodding to her and Vernon with respect.
They know what we did.
News travels fast.
Do you mind?
No. I am proud.
They walked to the edge of town where a trail led up to a ridge overlooking the valley. Vernon had mentioned wanting to show her something, and she followed him up the rocky path. The climb took 20 minutes, and when they reached the top, Laura caught her breath. The view was stunning. Below them, Dry Creek spread along the river, surrounded by green fields and distant mountains. The sky was clear and blue, the air warm and sweet with wildflowers. Vernon pointed to a stretch of land near the river, where green grass and cottonwood trees marked a natural spring.
That is where I want to build.
It is perfect.
We can start small. A cabin, a barn, maybe some cattle next year.
And I will have my studio in town.
We will make it work.
I know we will.
He turned to face her fully, taking both her hands in his. The wind lifted her hair, and the sun lit her face with warm light.
Laura, I did not plan on this. I did not plan on you. But now, I cannot imagine my life without you in it.
Vernon.
I want to build that life we talked about. Slow and real. With you.
Her eyes filled with tears, but she was smiling.
I want that too. More than anything.
Then stay with me. Build a life with me. Let me love you every day for the rest of my life.
Yes.
He pulled her close and kissed her, deep and lingering, pouring every promise and every hope into that moment. When they finally pulled apart, both were breathless and laughing.
We should get back.
Not yet. Just a few more minutes.
As long as you want.
They stood together on the ridge, arms wrapped around each other, looking out over the valley that would become their home. The town below was alive with possibility. The river sparkled in the sun. The mountains stood strong in the distance. And between them, a quiet promise hung in the air, unspoken but understood. They had fought for this moment. They had earned each other. And now, standing on that ridge with the whole world spread before them, they knew they were exactly where they were meant to be. Together.